Let's go into the scenario-specific rules for this. Trying to see if there's anything terribly exciting here. Archers are considered to be furred, so that comma doesn't actually separate them. And Viking archers are levy. Okay, so being on the same row means they're the same class, which I wasn't sure about. The game takes 10 turns. The Anglo-Saxons go first. They're on the attack. The road is pretty unimportant. The only thing it really does is negates the brook here. There's a slope here. And I think this is going up and this is going up because the color, yeah, this is hill up here. If you're on the slope and you're attacked by a unit from clear, the slope unit gets a bonus. But there, you know, the Saxons have already kind of positioned themselves for battle. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Berserker Rage. Whenever a Saxon attacks a good ordered herdman and rolls a 1, the herdman becomes berserk. And it can immediately counterattack, actually it must, with a +1 combat modifier in addition to anything else that applies for being berserk. If it was attacked from a direction other than front facing, it changes its direction and attacks the Saxon unit that attacked it. Now, this just sort of interrupts the normal order of play, so the Vikings can just turn around and whack you in the middle of it. And it's only the herdman. Viking reinforcements. On game turn 5, we have a pile of reinforcements coming in. And these all have circles on their strength to distinguish them. Rules for movement. There's no order. Like, you don't have like a chain of units coming back. Everybody can just enter together. Now, because they've been force marching, this contingent becomes, once turn 7 comes, this unit can never reorganize from disorder or rout. But although exhausted, they were also pretty pissed off. Once in the game, you can announce that all your herdman units in the Ori contingent, that's the reinforcements, will fight with Berserk Rage for that combat phase. This is made at the start of a Viking phase prior to any combat being made. Once declared, all of his good ordered herdmen with an enemy in the zone must attack that turn, and they get the Berserker Rage special rolls. And this gives them an additional +1. Unarmored herdmen, we already talked about those. We've got some 5 unarmored herdmen mixed in there. And they are not revealed until they actually fight. Until they, or if they're shot at, and it would make a difference. The initial Viking position appears to have been particularly effective. To reflect this, the Saxons make their first close combat. Each Viking unit can only be attacked once in the Anglo-Saxon combat phase. Given that the Anglo-Saxons have more units in the front, that may make a difference. May not. Rally to the King's Standard during reorganization. The unit that makes a recovery attempt while in the same hex as their king will modify this roll by +1 in addition to any usual leader bonuses. Opening movement restrictions. The bridge over the River Derwent is said to have taken 2 soldiers abreast. Even if it was a little wider, it would have taken a long time for the Anglo-Saxons to cross the river and form up. So they struck before their own army was fully arrayed. On game turn 1 only, only mounted housecarls, if you're using them, and leaders are allowed to move. On game turn 2, any housecarl leader or archer can move, and on game turn 3 and thereafter, all the Saxon units can move normally. The initial Viking defensive position was deliberately steadfast. If they're limited on that, they are limited on game turn 1. Only their leaders and archers can move. From turn 2 onward, they can move normally. Don't think we're going to see much happen on the first turn of the game. At the end of the game, the player adds up the following points. If you get 5 more points than the other, you win. Otherwise, it's a draw. 3 points for each Viking herdman unit eliminated, 2 points for each other unit eliminated, 10 points for killing Hardrada, 15 points if you occupy 1101, which is what? The gate to the road. For the Vikings, 5 points for each mounted Saxon housecarl eliminated, 4 for each Saxon foot housecarl eliminated, 2 for each other Saxon eliminated, 15 for killing Harold, and 20 for holding 24-10 at the end of the game, which is the road to York. If you kill any other enemy leaders other than the kings, they're worth 5 points each, and each enemy unit on the map routing is going to be worth 1 point at the end of the game. Gives the quick setup, reinforcements. But then we come to where this gets kind of interesting, where this makes it, not just a once and done type of game, to tell you the truth, is you have some options here. And let's take a look at them. So Snorri said at least part of the English army was mounted. So give 4 Saxon foot housecarl units mounted ones. And we've got the counters for those if I decided to use them. Hardrada should have been more alert. Assume he had extra notice. Give Ori a little bit extra time on the map. Forced march wasn't needed. They arrive and they're fresh. Saxons' 5-day rapid march and immediate entry into a long, hard battle would have pushed many to the limits of their endurance. From game turn 7 and on, disordered and routing Saxons cannot attempt to reorganize. These are all optional. During setup, the leaders Hardrada and Toasted can be placed with any friendly herdman units. Basically, they're limited to being in a particular line. I don't know how big a deal that is. Hardrada disregarded the prospect of an early reaction by Harold to examine how a fully prepared Viking army might have received him. The Vikings are free to set up however they wish, including Ori and his reinforcements at the map at the start of play. You wouldn't be using the special fatigue rules in that case, whatever. The main body of the Viking army was allowed to venture into an unsecured region without having most of its armor on. You could raise all the herdmen up to CV5 rather than the 4s and 5s. In the first edition of the game, the Berserker herdman got a combat modifier of +2 rather than +1, but it was reduced for play balance reasons, really. But, I mean, remember, the Saxons won the battle. You can't make it so that the Vikings always win. Hardrada, the Warrior King, to reflect the ferocious nature of the first counterattack that Hardrada launched, which nearly caused the enemy to falter en route. The Viking can use a special rule. During that turn up to turn 4, all the Vikings' attacks can have an additional +1 added to their attack value, but only if Hardrada is no further away than 3 hexes, and Hardrada himself has to be part of the attack. When Hardrada died on the battlefield, a natural lull occurred as both sides reorganized and Harold tried to broker a peace. If he dies on turn 5 or earlier, then on the turn that follows his death, both players cannot do anything except that in their movement phase, any friendly units can fall back towards their own baseline hex by 1 hex. This option doesn't affect the Ori reinforcements nor the end of the game. The moment that King Harold is killed, though, the game will end as a Viking victory. It's an interesting question why that would be the case, but and most of the optional rules favor the Viking player as counterbalance. Players may wish to reduce the victory points value of the eliminated Anglo-Saxon forces. I don't think I'm going to play with any of the options because I believe the game was designed with an eye towards balance, etc. I know Revolution tests the crap out of their games on the base scenarios, and I think we'll get a better feel for it that way. But yeah, there are options out there. The ones that look most interesting to me is and I'm tempted to do them. You know, I may just do them. I'll think about it a little longer. Is give the Saxons their cav, and give Harold his counterattack bonus at the beginning for his first counterattack, and then maybe also the Harold dies, Harold Hardrada dies rule. Yeah, there's 2 Heralds here. That's kind of confusing. Anyway, I'm not sure I'm going to start today because my wife and I are supposed to play some games, so we'll see. So let's get started. Push some pieces around. I threw my leaders down. Actually, I probably cheated with my damn 1605 to 1613 in both cases. So they're going to be down here. Okay. I can move them, however, to where I wanted them. The movement restrictions, you can put these on any house Carls. I don't have them on house Carls. Harold has to go on a house Carl. I'll put him here. The movement restrictions for turn 1 are very painful. Basically, none of the Saxons can move except the leaders. And on turn 2, Housecarl's leaders and archers can move. And then the Vikings can only move their leaders and archers. So we're not going to see much happen on that first turn. It's basically a wasted turn, by the way the rules are. I'll do a little bit of movement, get things exactly where I think I want them, but this is pretty close to where I want them. That's really what I get at the end of turn 1, which is a couple of the Viking archers have moved off to the flanks where they might be able to do more. Remember, they can't shoot over their own units, which I think is a little weird, but okay. And now I guess we're going into turn 2, and it's time for the Saxons to hit. What are their restrictions again? I'm never good at remembering movement restrictions. That Housecarls, leaders, and archers. Okay. And it basically means the Ferd's not going to move. So it's time to hit. And remember, we got the first turn restrictions where we can't hit too many of the Viking. We can't hit the Viking units multiple times. In games like this, I tend to kind of play a little loose. And in such a case, well, I didn't optimize as much as I would like to, as I'm going to do here. So I'm going to be hitting this unit here. You can see I'm going to be missing out an attack over on this flank, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I probably should have moved this guy, but he's already moved 2. What I want to do is I'm leaving some space for retreat paths because I don't want routed units to get smashed, basically. It's unlikely to happen. I need to find me a die. I got one here. Let me grab some more if I need them. And let's start doing the attacks. So I've got a 5 versus a 4. That's a +1 now. Yep, no effect there. Okay. So we'll just do that attack right away. And we get a 7. That's an elimination on this unit. That means I have some morale checks to make immediately. And we have a class of the Viking Levy, which are out on a 10 or greater. I'd be rolling a +1. That's not going to affect them. And I'm sure that the Herdmen are even harder to hit. So you got to do some wear to do things. I believe he's going to have to advance, however, if I recall correctly. Yep. The attacker must advance. Okay, the next attack we're going to do is over here in the corner. And we reveal the unit, and it is a 5, and we're a 5. But we got +1 for our leader. Now we got a chance of a leader death on this automatically, which is kind of painful. And we roll a 2. A 2's not good. That's going to cause us to see one of the rules, which is the Berserker Rage. It will get an immediate counterattack. However, I think we have a leader loss check first before that counterattack takes place, because there will be 2 leader loss checks in this case. We roll a 6, that's not going to affect them. And now we're at 5 plus 1 for Berserk. We're going to be at even here. And I don't know, do we have to do it? Yeah, I think we have to. So we roll a 4. Both sides are disordered. And we do that with one of these. Now that's weakened that unit. It would make a great target, but we're not going to have that. And I'll get another one of these. I'll keep going down the line like this. Okay, so here I've got a +1 on my attack. And I kind of feel like I have to make these attacks early because I have to get some hits on the Vikings before their reinforcements come in and start causing me problems. A 4, that's disorders again. And again, I would much rather hit the weakened unit, but I can't because of the shield wall roll for this time. I'm going to keep going down the line. I'll come back. No reason for me to waste your time with some die rolling and make it harder on myself as well. Here's our quick net effect. We actually had some success, quite a few successes. We killed 4 of those herdmen. However, we did lose, who is this? I don't know, Wolf, I don't know. And there's a lot of disorder across the line. We would have liked to pick on those disorders. We're not really able to recover any of our units because they took damage. There wasn't any missile activity going on. We were too far away to fire missiles, I think, everywhere. These guys just couldn't get close enough. But now it's going to be the Viking turn, and they'll get to move forward. Now, they might end up moving into range of the Saxon missile units and thus take some fire, which might reduce their chances of being able to hurt somebody. Right away, things start to get interesting with, some flank attacks happening, with potentials of ganging up on units. So we're going to see what we can do here. Now, the first thing we have is the missile fire. And this guy is going to plink at him. Just try to weaken him a little bit. Let's take a look. Archer, he's hitting Herdman with CV4. So he needs a 5 or a 6 to hit. He does not. We flip him over to indicate he's fired this turn. It's not a big deal. This guy will, he'll try to blast this one, I guess. I don't know. No hit. I hope I didn't roll a 1. That's come over here. These guys did not have their range intruded into. And now we go to the combat phase for the Vikings. I'm going to kind of move down the board because, well, I can attack him. I'm at +2 on him. That seems like a good move. Okay, we only get a 4 though, which is not terribly good for us. We're disordered, but it kills one of these. And that means we have to check this. The Saxon Ferd routes on an 8 or higher. I've only got, I'm not sure what the leaders count as for the morale checks. All associated leaders for the testing group. See, that's the thing I don't know. I'm trying to find that. I'm gonna have to look for that particular rule because it's possible if he counts for like both groups or something, it's possible we might have a rout of the archers there. I don't know. Over here in the specific rules, the Saxons split into two warrior classes, Housecarl and General Ferd. Saxon archers are considered to be General Ferd, the Vikings into two. Viking archers are levy. Nothing about the leadership. I'm going to say the leadership's all the higher class. Because they really are, but it's something I wish had been written out. Now, I don't have to launch an attack here, and I'm be at a penalty, so I don't want to. But when we go over here, there's something interesting. I have sort of larger units. That would make sense if I was weakened. It might be worth trying to hit him, do a disorder, and then hit him again at +1. The chances of a disorder on him are not too bad. The problem is I've got a better chance of being eliminated if I take the swing there. And I don't think I want to take that chance. So we'll come down here. I'm at +2 on that guy. Get a 6. That's an elimination on this disordered unit. We advance. And I don't think there's any morale check on that. It's at +2, but we have to get a 10 or higher, which is not going to happen anytime soon. Keep going down here. Now I can swing back. Oh, fuck. I got my little tweezers, but I'm having trouble with them because their hook is interfering with these counters in a bad way. So I'm going to make an even attack on that. I don't know. I'm kind of stupid when it comes to stuff. I only get a 2 that's a disorder on this stuff. And a chance that the leader dies. I'm not always the best at judging should I attack or not. The leader's fine. Down here, I want to start picking these off. So I'm at +1 on that disordered unit. Well, that wasn't good. I was counting on being able to hit that, maybe kill it or something, and go further. But here, we'll just go at +1 on that one as well. Three. That's a disorder for both. That doesn't hurt his unit at all. You can see the way the combat works. It's pretty simple. +2 over there. 3, God. And I'm pretty much sucking wind. Again, these 2-to-1s, I don't think I really want to make them here. I wasn't able to get my disorders out of the line. I'm going to leave them there. So let's go for some interesting stuff. Here I have a 6. So that's +1 on an injured unit. Or no, not an injured unit. I'm a 6 because of the flanking. That puts me to 4. We're both disordered, but that's okay. Because now I can hit him at +1 for size, +2 more, so I'm at +3, and this is kind of how you get your kills, I guess. 8, and I do indeed get a kill over there. There's nobody in range. This pushes in. I don't know if he can change facing. He definitely wants to if he can. Fortunately, he cannot. Okay, that means I get to do some rallies, and because I was able to pull some units out of the line, I can do some rallies. Let's take our rally checks. So I need a 5 or a 6 for this in order to recover it because he's not with a leader. And he succeeds. Over here, he's in a zone, which means he doesn't help this. I was hoping, I don't know what I was hoping. It was stupid. That does not help. Keep running down the line. This guy can try to recover. Also a 5 or a 6. Should have the king up there or something. And that is the end of turn 2. The archers, and I think more than one. No, this one they also got to attack. Turn up, and we go to turn 3. Boom. Goal of, excuse me, getting, softening up the enemy. I'm going to open up with some missile fire, see what I can do. I think I'll shoot this one at this. Because if he gets a hit, I may not want to shoot the other one. It's kind of a weird situation. He's going after... This guy has a spear, so it's a weaker unit. Doesn't make a difference, but he's disordered, which is cool. Now the thing is, I may not want to fire this guy yet. Is there any reason I don't? I might as well shoot at that too, because I don't see. I can always move out of the way after the fire. And we get him as well. I didn't show you the roll. It's over there. I mean, okay. And let's take a look at these guys. These guys can't shoot yet. They're not close enough. So we're good there. Now we're going to set up the movement, and I'm not really sure what I'm trying to do. I want to get flank attacks if you can, but I also have these archers I could go try to run off the field or something. More maneuver capability in this than in the Hastings game, that much I'll tell you. It doesn't look like a hell of a lot, but I feel like I'm able to slip in and get some neat attacks. One of the questions is always, hey, do I go for the better attack, you know, against the disordered unit, or do I just go for the flank attack against the non-disordered unit, hoping the disordered units have trouble getting away, getting out of situations. I did pull back some of my disordered units to rally my own, because I get to rally them in my own turn, so that's kind of cool. But opening things up, we're going to start shooting our way down the line. I just want to show you what the situation looks like more than anything else, really. Okay, so here's the situation at the end of the Saxon turn. I recovered a number of my units, and leaders are really, really important for that. That +1 is a pretty big deal. I'm beginning to think using leaders in battle is a horrible choice. Yeah, I did actually launch to attempt to kill him. Disordered myself. We got a kill over here. We got our first loss on the levies here. The rest of these are all furred with different colored pieces, or I'm sorry, herdmen with different colored shields, because they're different strength. But they're actually at the point where they have some chance of causing disruptions in the line, but it hasn't happened yet. Now we'll go over to the Viking turn. It's beginning to look a lot more chaotic. I've got the Vikings kind of pulling out, trying to get some good hits on things like, well, here it's a disordered, but it's hitting in the flank. That's pretty good. Here I'm whacking from the rear, hoping to really bust things open. The Saxons have a little bit less morale, so they're more likely to start, you know, seeing some breaking happening, but the Vikings took a lot of hits in those early couple attacks. I don't know. It feels like the Saxons got a little lucky, but I'm not sure how much that is that, or it's actually the situation in their numerical superiority. I'm getting a little worried that maybe I'm doing something wrong, or, which is quite likely, or maybe it's not as balanced as I would have expected for a revolution scheme, sort of standard rules for it. And that's the end of turn 3. We gotta recuperate some archers. The Saxon archers, a couple of them ran out of ammo. I'm going to toss them over here so I don't get them confused with my losses. I got some pieces I got to keep off the board anyway. What happened, again, recovery in the backfield areas, a little bit of damage done. At this point, the Housecarls are at a point where I believe, given the leader is an extra point that I'm applying there, have a possibility of causing a more massive disruption to the line. I like the disruption to the line rule, but it hasn't taken into effect yet because there just haven't been enough losses on either side quite yet. That should be changing very soon, though. Now we're back on the Saxons. We're going to see what they're going to be able to do. Their archers really got the shit kicked out of them back here, which is problematic. I think I may have cheated a little bit with some disorganized Vikings attacking. not allowed to do that. I was almost going to do it and decided I had to look that up and saw, no, you're not allowed to do that. But I think I had done it a little earlier in the battlefield. I'm okay with that, you know. Sometimes, you know, rules mistakes can kind of cover for things that happen within a game, that happen within the actual battle that the game system can't even handle. So it's okay to make mistakes every now and then, in my opinion. Anyway, on to the Saxons. Let's see what they're going to do. It is lucky hitting the Viking archers. We'll see how that works out. And also launching some opportunistic type attacks all over the place where I can. I can't withdraw from everywhere. But, you know, like here I was able to slip around behind. Now I'm not going to get an attack, but I get a chance to recover back there. So that's kind of, you know, this weird kind of smashing through the line to try to find a place to save myself, just because there was no way to get through the interlocking zones, you know, well, this unit zones to get here, but some weird things sort of happened. I'm not sure how believable they all are. I'm not saying troops didn't penetrate through the lines sometimes, but it didn't seem like battered troops wouldn't normally do that, but I can kind of picture it. So I'm holding up. I'm holding up with my suspension of disbelief so far. What's happening? You know, it's like 1/3 chance on some of these units, or maybe even better. But in some cases, I'm picking on units that are off on their own where there's no problem. And that's things like this that just manage to survive well enough on their own, even though attacked from behind. I guess we're on to the Viking side of things. Vikings try to position themselves to best handle this. Here, you know, launching attacks on this unit to try to free this guy up, etc. Over here, I tried to create another defensive line. I've got more troops coming in. They should help. Over here, launch, you know, an attack on this side, but I've got a hanging flank over here. And over here, things are just kind of chaotic, you know. I don't think there's any chance of fire happening from the Saxons. They're so low on archers, I think. They only have, yeah, they got these 2 left. So I guess we run right to the combat phase. And now it's happening. You can see a couple of places the Saxon line broke. That was actually both parts of the both types of Saxon units have broken. Both the Huscarls here and no, that's all Huscarls. Yeah, okay. Just making sure. I thought it was both types. Elsewhere, well, the Viking left is, although a little disorganized in terms of where it's located in the field, in pretty good order, whereas the center, which looks, you know, kind of solid, has a disordered flank over here, and these aren't in great shape. This guy reloads. So things are a little interesting. There's no question about that. All right. Okay, so here's the Saxon attempt to reform their line. We had 4 of the Housecarls leave the map from route and get a chance to try to rally. That is looking pretty ugly, to tell you the truth. And we're able to form a pretty solid line over here. We'll see how that those always get broken up during attacks because of the forced advances. And over here we're seeing, you know, some sort of more chaotic, where really, to some extent, it feels like maybe things are a little too fluid. A break in the line allows you to slip in and penetrate it, which is not terribly bad, but sometimes it feels just a little bit too much like some of the old quads, and some of the, more than that, because this has facing, some of the early games, and honestly some of the current ones too. I think I even see this over in the CWB NBS system, where sometimes it just feels like units are charging in and outflanking, and then there's counter outflanks just going on, and there's chaos going on that the willingness to expose a flank to get a flank shot is often, it seems excessive to me. And it's not just this game. it's many other tactical games where this can happen, and it can even happen in minis. Is that something that a commander would be able to order his troops to do? Because you've got this little edge to getting this outflanking option going, but you're definitely going to expose your own flank for it, and you're going to pay a price. And the units that go forward and get into that position, to me, they would be very hesitant towards moving into that position, even under orders in the best of armies. Now, here, I'm not so sure in the Dark Ages era, but I am much more certain that when you have firepower units, there should probably be some sort of morale check to expose yourself like that. Of course, this is a simpler system than some of the ones I look at, and it may be, just kind of baked into wargaming, tactical wargaming at this point, that you can do this kind of thing. It's just one of those things that I kind of like to question sometimes. I'd be careful of. Early in the battle, I was making a lot of kind of one-on-one attacks, right? Zero modifier base. I had to break the line. Now, you don't want to do those unless you're going to get some kind of bonus off the attack, like, with something like the Huskarls hitting a disordered unit. Here, using the Ferd, I took a swing at something and ended up disordered in a situation I really shouldn't have even attacked. Because that zero table just isn't any good. And you're seeing the line, not a lot of recovery for the Saxons here. And then over here, they're kind of doing a little bit better. And may be able to get some kind of massive outflank, except we got a whole horde of troops that are coming down that road real soon. And they might just save the Viking butts. Overall, it looked like the Saxons weren't doing too well with units routing off the board and everything. Another thing is, once you start getting kind of disorganized, it's easier to get kills on specific units, but it's harder to route the formation in any sense of the word. So that feels a little weird, because once a formation kind of, starts breaking up and no longer has support, so it doesn't have the concept of like left-right support or anything like that, which can give some of the same effects as we get off of, oh, look, a unit just broke to your left. In terms of strengthening a line. But since it doesn't have that concept, but it does allow these kind of more fluid attacks, it's probably sufficient, but you're seeing less routing maybe over here than where things are opened up than you probably should. Here come Ori's reinforcements as well. The Vikings, again, trying to form a line. I find myself in the game consistently trying to, reform the lines rather than a lot of disjointed units. You see, you got some disordered units, you don't have good attacks. You fall back a little bit and you look for your key attacks that you need to make, like getting this thing out of there. If that thing survives, it's a big deal. But what it does mean is that we don't have those massive line versus line assaults happening as much. Those will start up again. There's just not enough troops in a good enough shape to launch the across-the-board attacks that were happening early on. For us to turn 6, where we're seeing what are beginning to look like more formed armies. This guy was cleared out of there. We still got this poor guy stuck back there. So far, I'm definitely liking the system. More than I remember playing opposed, but that's often the nature of games for me. I really enjoy being able to, especially with the tactical, but with a lot of games, enjoy being able to kind of observe the mechanisms in play on my own more than I do trying to play an opposed game. Just my own tastes. Okay, now we have the Saxons pulling their line back this way, trying to rally a bunch of troops with Harold, but still apply some pressure over here, and also trying to fall back away from Ori's forces. Get some defensive fire to go, and then the attacks, and that's about it. All right, and the Saxons, These guys ended up out of ammo, so they just disappeared before they got a chance to get killed. But elsewhere, the Saxon attacks didn't do terribly well, the one exception being here where they killed a unit and routed another. It's very easy to rout things if they try to form up in lines now. So actually something like this is kind of iffy because one eliminated and parts of that could collapse. The routing doesn't cause other units next to the routing units to rout, so it's not like the whole line will fall back. And it's harder to rally routed units because you need a leader for it. However, the Saxons got a pretty good set of rolls. They didn't do so well in combat, but they got a pretty good set of rolls on their rallies. So they're in better shape than I thought they would. And we got to be careful because as soon as next turn, these start getting their fatigue penalty. And the Vikings kind of spreading out, Again, trying to rally here. I don't have leadership everywhere I want it to be. I've got Toastig trying to make his way there. Harold somewhat exposed. But making attacks on the flanks, this feels more like a whirling cav battle than it does a bunch of, shield wall capable axemen marching towards each other. Because they're doing a lot of damage to the Saxon line. You can see a bunch of routed units here, and there are losses to correspond with those, although some of the cases I had too many Saxons close together. And what seems like a good plan, anchor your troops and everything, is just too dangerous in this system. I don't know if I accept that. Granted, there's a trade-off, which is, if you have a nice solid line, you're unlikely to get outflanked. But on the other hand, even if you don't get outflanked, if you do manage to get into a situation where you could be destroyed, like this archer here, for example, it could cause a couple more units to rout, and then that breaks holes in your line that are hard to recover from here. It's ugly. They've pretty much collapsed on their right flank, and I don't know if there's much hope for the Saxons. On the other hand, Ori's troops can't recover because we're on turn 7 now because of their fatigue rolls. I think I'm noticing with this system, and I wish I had realized it earlier. I kind of was starting to realize it. What actually does work is the every other hex defense of the old Avalon Hill style classics with the zones of control, etc. Because basically what's happening is by having a zone of control here, I'm preventing someone from slipping behind and getting a flank attack. So if the line is actually a solid every other hex line, it really is kind of impenetrable, and it's not going to fall apart due to losses. I don't believe in that. I don't think that represents ancient battle warfare at all, or in this case, Dark Ages warfare, perhaps. Well, 1066, we're getting into the medieval era here. I don't believe, though, the realities of that kind of warfare are well represented by, there should be spacing between units. Make your arguments about Roman checkerboard formation, but no. A little bit of a Saxon counterattack, clearing up, rolling up the Viking line here. Now this guy's just doomed. It's one of the things, if you get attacked and you end up routed, which is generally the case, because why would you make an attack that might end up routing your line? It's going to be tough for one of the leaders to run back and get you. In this case, he's going to move. He moves twice in a row, basically, in a rout. So he's going to go 8 hexes. You got to be far in the opponent's side of the board for a routed unit to survive even, one turn and get a chance to rally. A huge Viking horde coming forward for whatever value that is, and trying to pick off over on this side, get some additional casualties. We feel like we've got the game more or less in the bag as long as we don't screw things up as the Vikings. Screwing things up isn't always a matter of horrible tactics. Sometimes it's just a string of bad die rolls. A bunch of attacks didn't succeed very well. We still killed some units. I think we're still fine as the Vikings. Ori, probably not going to be able to do much.
he has this berserker advantage. I held off on it because I couldn't bring enough troops to bear. I'm probably never going to get more troops to bear than I did on that turn, which was like 2. That looks like about what I'm going to get in there anyway. All right, time to end it for tonight, but we're getting close to the end of the battle here.
The Saxon remnants are about to make another attempt to attack. I didn't actually turn this guy because I'm hoping he busts him out of the loop. And I took where I could advantages. I think actually I'm going to pull these guys back a little bit. Yeah, I know, I'm making that weak line. That's dangerous. Let me think. What if I pull back like this? It's still a little too many units in a row, but at least the archers will get to provide some fire defense if there's an advance there.
See this? Not a lot changed, but now we're on to the Viking side, and we'll see where they maneuver. They should be able to get into here and get on the flanks of everything, basically. Not a lot of recovery for the Saxons, which is a problem. Vikings push forward. I'm going to use the +1 bonus for the Berserk bonus. I'm getting a lot of potential attacks in. Not a lot of different units, so it may not be that big a deal, but we'll see. Do well enough on their attacks. They rout this unit, but because they killed and advanced into Girth, I can't really read him. He got to retreat to here. Harold also was advanced on and over here and got to retreat as well. That was before the rout, actually. The ordering might have had them both stacked in one place. And now we push into the next Saxon turn. And I'm pretty sure this is a Viking victory, no matter how you count it. We'll continue playing and count through the points just to make sure that that makes sense. But I can't imagine that the amount of Viking troops that are on the board versus the Saxon troops that are on the board is an indication of anything else. So a few pieces left. There's really not a lot you can do. Another fitting turn. Godwinson gets himself killed. And not much change. A couple more kills on the Vikings, but it's not gonna help things. Let's continue to press on. Hoping to get a couple more kills. I have not yet rolled that counter fire, the defensive fire there. That was a 1. Yeah, that gets rid of him, which gets rid of the problem. And now a few more attacks. To the final turn of the game with 3 Saxon pieces, only 1 a combat regular unit, the other an archer. This one's not combat ready, a leader. You know, this part, it's basically mop up what's been going on the last couple turns. The battle was decided some time ago, but might as well play it out, even though nothing too exciting is going to happen. And now the final acts of the Vikings to just close this out, and then we score it. More attacks just to try to finish off those last few Saxon pieces. The excitement of the game for me is the route rolls and how that interacts. I'm not sure I agree with how the mechanism works for this scenario particularly, but it feels like the battle kind of gets to the point where both armies are destroyed. I mean, in the sense that like they will both automatically rout. You know, each faction of it, just the number of units dead in both cases. So you can't have units together. Early on you can, but as the battle progresses, it becomes more and more you really don't want to be near your friends. And that feels kind of strange. But the way that interplay is actually, I think, the most interesting part of the game as a game. I didn't quite catch that, the concept of it at first, and I think the Saxons paid a bit of a price there. Lost another Saxon archer, and that's it. Now it's time to count. Quick count up of the deaths gets me 132 for the Vikings to 63 for the Saxons. Now, I forgot to go occupy 24-10 here, which would have been 20 more points. I'm not sure I could have gotten there. Certainly, in effect, I'm there. I control it, so I wouldn't, if there was some kind of distinguishment of points and, some kind of more detailed thing. Look, I've wiped the Saxon army out, How did this happen? I think because one of the Viking counterattacks, they started spreading out at about the time when their army deteriorated to the point where that was good. And by the time I realized that forming solid lines was not a good idea for defense once your army starts getting shaken, because that's just inherently what you try to do in most war games. And it makes sense intuitively as well. You want to anchor your lines. You don't want to let people get flank attacks on you. And the game seemed about getting flank attacks to crack the lines initially. Well, by the time I realized that, it just handed a fair advantage over to the Vikings, where they got to get a few hits in that caused some significant routing on the Saxon side. And honestly, even after I sort of started realizing it, I still was doing it with the Saxons because I'm stupid or something. Anyway, that's this one. I don't feel terribly convinced about, it presenting an accurate picture of the battle. Then again, of course, who the hell knows what the battle really was like, except from fairly fragmentary evidence, which is the problem with anything this far back. There's a lot of dispute as to what happened, and that's why there's a lot of different options, etc. But I don't feel like the core system really works here. We'll take a look to see whether it works a little better over in Hastings. On the other hand, like the some of the old SPI quads and everything, how serious is it really about trying to simulate history? Or is it just, that one step up from, a little bit more in this case, up from, and I never got to play pre-Stag, so I don't know about that, but a little bit more complex than some of the Avalon Hill classics were, which kind of used a rule set through all eras that was essentially, they would use it for ancients as well as for World War II, and just say, well, yeah, you have that same combat results table. This is a little bit different, and again, I haven't looked at the pre-Stags yet, perhaps ever, but it's got more of a modern style, and by modern I don't mean necessarily within the last 20 years. There was stuff in the 80s that certainly, honestly, even Old Alexander by Avalon Hill didn't use a straight CRT, if I recall correctly. It used something that was more evocative of the period. So, I'm not seeing anything here to say, wow, this really is a revolution in gaming. It feels more like a throwback. Now, again, I haven't played a lot of Revolution games. The only other one that I've played is from this series as well. It's the Hastings one, and we'll be getting that out. But just to give you a kind of a feel, it doesn't have kind of the cute command rules that like Men of Iron has. It's certainly not in the complexity range of like the Ancient Battle, the Great Battles of History stuff. It feels like it's more in the realm of like the Ancient Battles Deluxe in terms of the amount of small number of pieces. This has a few more pieces, but it's less thinky than that, and I think also does not quite as good a job of representing the era as well as that system did. But that's just my opinion. All right, let's send this up.